Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Expert to Authority show. My name is Simone Vincenzi, and I'm your host. And today we are going to talk about copywriting. Now, know that if you are in business, then words are important, whether you're using them on sales pages, social media, whether you're using them on webinar scripts, like I do, words are key. And today I have an incredible guest. We're going to talk about how do we inject feelings into our copy? How do we inject emotions into our copy so that it converts more? We're also going to talk about AI. What role does AI play in all this? And how can we use this principle also with AI? So she's a copywriting coach, a launch strategist, and a creator of the feeling, not features methodology. With 7 years of experience helping brands connect authentically with their audiences, she believes that people buy with their hearts, not with their heads. She's on a mission to banish BS marketing and focus on real connection in copy. Welcome, Chantelle Davison.
Thank you so much for having me. Really happy to be here.
It's my absolute pleasure. So, first of all, let's talk about emotion in copywriting. Why is that important, and what is that people are missing? Let's start from there.
Yeah, sure. I think why it's important really comes down to people's fundamental needs. Like as human beings, when you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, I think most people are familiar with that. After food, shelter, water, the thing we need the most is to be seen, heard, and understood. We need community, we need self-actualization, we need to feel connected with other people. And so when we're writing copy, essentially what we're doing is telling someone that they need something that we're selling, that it's going to make their life better in some way. And so if we're not tapping into those feelings, that desire to be seen, heard, understood, those basic human fundamental needs, we are going to be telling them that they don't need what we sell. If we can't tap into those basic needs, if we can't share why it means something to them, if we can't share the value of what we're selling in a way that connects with them on an emotional level, we are going to be missing the mark. We're not going to be connecting our product or service to the better life that's possible for them.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. There was something like in one line in your introduction that you were saying people buy with their hearts, not with their mind. And I'm curious in terms of what is when people or even marketers write copy. What is that they are often missing? Because I think that there is an idea about what writing emotionally is and emotional
Mhm.
copywriting is and what it actually is based on your expertise. So I'd love to know that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that a lot of people have the misconception that emotionally resonant copy means manipulation. I think a lot of people think when they hear the phrase, emotionally resonant copy or uh, emotion marketing, they think about poking pain points and twisting the knife and saying things that are going to make people feel really shit, really stuck in their pain. And that isn't how I think of it. I think for me, it's all about empathy marketing. It's about making people feel seen, heard, understood. That's kind of the refrain, but it's because it's just so important. So when we're talking about writing copy that uses emotion, it's about helping people picture that brighter future for themselves. So it's using sensory language. It's saying what people are going to feel, what people are going to see, what they're going to hear, what is that experience going to be like for them? Because we're really sensory creatures. So when we hear someone say, you're going to feel confident, you're going to see dollars landing in your bank, you're going to hear the ping of Stripe notifications, whatever it is that we're selling, if it's coaches, for instance, that's quite a common one. We can start to then visualize what that future actually looks like for ourselves. And that feels real to us, which makes us feel emotional about the connection we have with that outcome. That's basically what people are buying, isn't it? I mean, you're a sales presenter and trainer, you know this very well, but what people are buying is never the thing. It's always the feeling, the identity, the transformation they're going to go through. So
So if it's not what like twisting the knife,
yeah.
right? Then what is it? Because you said, okay, it's not twisting the knife, it's not making someone feel shittier. That's not the goal. It's
Yeah.
actually making having someone creating empathy, feeling them understood. So, can you give an example of what, for example, like standard would look like and what with emotions would look like?
Yeah, sure. I think standard copy tends to focus a lot on the features. So a standard sales page might say, I'm trying to think of a good example for an industry that would be relevant, but let's say it's a copywriter. When you hire me to write your copy, I will explain what's so brilliant about your service. I'll create you a sales page. I'll create you sales emails. I will write everything for you, hand it over. You get 2 rounds of revisions. It's very features led. You're telling people what you're selling. But when you're selling with feelings, when you're tapping into that benefit, that emotion for people, you're saying, when you hire me, you're going to see the vision in your head brought to life on the page. You're going to be able to explain what you do in a way that connects with people so that you can sell with ease and confidence, so that selling doesn't feel icky and salesy. It feels like bringing people into a party they want to be part of. So there's a difference between the way we frame things when we're talking about the features versus the feelings and the benefits and the outcomes for people. It's inviting them to a story they want to be part of. It's making them the hero. It's positioning ourselves as someone who can facilitate the change that they already know they want, generally speaking. So that would be, particularly when we're talking about copy, that would be tapping into maybe the goals that they have, the aspirations they have. When you outsource this, you're going to be able to become the sort of person that finishes work at 4 p.m., that always tucks the kids into bed, that never misses bedtime, that, whatever those emotionally resonant pieces are for your ideal client.
There were a couple of things that really stood out to me with the example that you gave. One is that you use the word, you will feel this way.
Yeah.
You will feel this way. You will feel this way. So I think that and for people to understand, using the word feeling now automatically triggers a certain feeling.
Yeah.
And then there was something else that you did, like you will be that person. So you're actually what in NLP is called future pacing. You're like, you
Mhm.
will become that person, which is a sense of movement, is a sense of like, this is the new version of me by buying this offer.
Yeah.
And the question I have for you now is like, is there a place for the problem? Is there a place for the pain? Is there a place for getting someone actually to feel, hey, you got to do something about it? Because if I think about my side of the world, like I'm less on the writing side, I'm more on the presenting side.
Yeah.
The principles are exactly the same.
Mhm.
They're words, right? It's about evoking emotions in people. And if I want someone to take an action, I gotta make them feel uncomfortable in a
Mhm.
certain way, not make them feel shit. I think that our presenters that they actually, as you said, that they take it too far. That
Yeah.
they use they really get people to go into a negative state for a long time before pulling them out. That's not my style. I don't like that. But at the same time, where is the place for that part of the negative emotions?
Yeah, I think there definitely is one. You know, we think about the hero's journey. I'm sure you talk about this with your presenting as well, but you think about the hero's journey. Every hero has a trial to go through. Every hero starts the journey wanting to become a better version of themselves. So there is going to be a starting point because without it, we can't see where the bridge is to the end point, to the transformation they want. So yeah, I agree. We have to, I like to call it empathy marketing rather than pain point marketing. And I think it's about making people feel and realize that where they are right now, if they do nothing, isn't going to change. I think that's, for me, that's the sweet spot is acknowledging where people are, acknowledging the struggles they might be feeling, the tension that there is in their experience right now between where they are and where they want to be. So during those comparisons, maybe it is in the example I gave, you want to be the sort of parent that tucks your kids in every night, but every single morning you promise yourself you'll be done by 4, and every single night you're still at your desk at 7, having missed bedtime again. And it's acknowledging their pain without saying, and that makes you a shitty.
Yeah, and
I
now
think is the
then that's
difference.
why you're a bad parent. It's like,
Yeah, exactly. And I think
I'm
that's
here trying to do my best.
yeah, and I think that's the difference for me is, it's acknowledging their pain. That's very different than making them feel like their pain or their current situation is a failing. It's then scooping them up with the and here's how things can be different. I think that's the key. And you made that point really well, about presenting. If people hold you in that negative space too long without showing you what's possible, that's where you stay stuck. So it's very carefully and gently acknowledging the current situation, figuring out what that pain looks like and empathizing. But then it doesn't have to be this way. There is a different way. If you feel like you've tried everything and you're stuck and this is just how it has to be, I promise you it's not. There is another way of doing things. And that's where we bring in that transformation, that emotion, and that way that life could be if they decide to do something different to what they're doing now.
I'm gonna ask you later about some of the principles that people need to be aware if they want to incorporate more of the style of writing in their business, in their words, in their presentations as well. But the question that I have right now, I'm just gonna sidetrack a bit because the buzzword right now is AI. Right?
Mhm.
AI, 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 AI.
Yes.
Where does it fit into the way you work right now? Because you're using AI quite a lot,
I am.
integrating in it. So where does it fit in your ecosystem and in the way also in the principle that we've been talking about so far?
Yeah. So for me, obviously AI is a massive threat to copywriting industry. When it first sort of burst onto the scene with ChatGPT 3 or 4 years ago now, I saw it as a massive threat, of course, like everyone else. But I was a very early adopter because I also saw a massive opportunity. I think that the way AI fits into copywriting is the same way that a calculator fits into mathematics. It is a tool to be used by someone who knows how to wield it. A calculator is no good if you don't know what sum you're trying to do and if you don't know what you're using it for. Same way, AI is only as good as the person using it. So for me, it's about speeding up the process of tapping into those different emotional points. So, for instance, one of the ways I use it a lot is to dig into biopsychology, to understand people's views of the world that might be different from mine, because we all have quite narrow human experiences. Like we know what our life is like, we know what the people we know's life is like, but we don't really necessarily know what our ideal client's life is like or what their different perspectives might be, especially if they have a wildly different personality type to us. Let's say we're a D in the disc profile and they're right over on the S side of it. We might think everyone is motivated by results and money and success, and actually what they're motivated by is security and safety. So when we're thinking about writing copy that's going to resonate with a particular type of person, AI can be a brilliant research tool because I can say, if my ideal client is this kind of person, what about this offer might make them nervous? What might their reservations be? What might their hopes and dreams and aspirations be? Because chances are it's going to show a load of stuff based on this massive aggregate of human nature that we've been sharing with it for years and years now. And it's going to show me some insights that wouldn't necessarily have occurred to me through the lens of my worldview. So when I use it, particularly in copywriting or for research, what I'm doing is using it as a tool to prompt my genius rather than using it as a replacement for creativity or critical thinking. And not that you asked, but that's my biggest concern about it. It's not whether or not we use it, we must use it. We're going to be stuck in the past if we don't. But I think there's a very real risk of people's creative muscles atrophying and losing critical thinking if we rely on it too much. So for me, it's all about how we integrate it in as a tool and use it in a really intentional, conscious way so that we are using it as a tool and not abdicating responsibility to it.
Yeah, we are on the same page on that side because there are, AI can make you comfortable,
Mhm.
and to keep a skill alive, you got to use that skill. If I stop
Yeah.
presenting, I'll become very bad at presenting very quickly.
Yeah.
I'll stop writing, I will become very bad at writing very quickly. And I found myself actually now overusing AI even to come up with deadlines.
Hmm.
to the point where I had a moment where I couldn't come up with an headline on my own. And was scary for me. And
Hmm.
so now I'm more selective in terms of, okay, what time do capacity do I have? And why am I using this for? Because I want to keep, as you mentioned, that muscle alive. I want not to lose the years of copywriting that I did, or the years of presenting that I did, or just having my brain thinking and making those connections without just relying on something that it was fed and the brain making a binary decision or a multiple decision, which is ultimately then what we do. And I am curious, you use AI though from an expert point of view. Like I know, for example, that if I put a prompt into ChatGPT about a presentation, I know if that presentation is going to be good or not.
Hmm.
I can have a sense of that, but someone that is not an expert, then they might take it and they say, well, that's better than what I would write. So
Yes.
I'll keep it like this. So for someone that is not an expert in copywriting, how would they start using AI in a way that actually is going to serve them and not really affect their brand? Because now everyone and their grandmother is going to be able to write content and very bad content. So
Yeah.
where do you see people that are more new to the world, how they can adopt it and what kind of things do they need to think about?
Yeah, I've been thinking and talking about this a lot recently, and you're right. It's democratizing mediocre copy. That's where we're at right now. That's one of the things AI has done. And so I think the best thing that people who are trying to be adopters of this stuff can do is use their brain first and use their brain after. I call it like the AI sandwich. For me, it's the really important approach is do a brain dump of your ideas first. So let's say you want to use it to create a presentation. Great. But rather than just create me a presentation about this topic, we say, I want to create a presentation. Here are all my ideas. Here's the most important points I want to make. Here is my point of view. Here's the nuance that I take on it. Here's the most important point I want to hammer home. Here's the thing I want people to take away from it. Can you help me give it some structure? And then when it spits out inevitably a presentation, you go through and read it aloud and make sure that if it doesn't sound like you, you're editing it. Because so often what it spits out is, ironically, things like ChatGPT have been taught to write like copywriters. So all of the conventions that we've been using for years and years have been plugged into these tools, and now we've lost so many of them. We think about the M dash, the fluff free, the phrase.
I didn't even know that the M dash was actually a thing until ChatGPT. I didn't even know that it was used. And I remember having a chat with my copywriter, one of my copywriters, Rosie, which is also one of my business partners. And I called her out on it. I remember I called her out on it and I said, "Hey, stop using this M dash because it is so I like it's ChatGPT." It's like, "No, actually, I wrote this and I use M dashes." So ChatGPT, I didn't even know it was a thing.
It's one of my biggest frustrations actually is that because particularly ChatGPT has been trained on copywriting conventions, so many of the things like the 3 point structure or the it's not this, it's this, the conventions that have worked really well, even power words like propel, accelerate, skyrocket, which used with a sprinkling were effective previously, have now become so ubiquitous with ChatGPT written content and copy that you see it and like you did, you just roll your eyes immediately because it's so obvious. So
Elevate.
elevate is another good one. Accelerate, yeah, 100%. So I think, there's a few things. First of all, be vigilant when it spits it out that you edit it and make sure you put your own spin on it, but also be putting that human thought into it too. I've actually created, I can share it with you and your audience, but I've created a glossary. I call it my telltale glossary, which is some of the basic things that AI tends to spit out all the time so that you can kind of use it as a bit of a reference point for when you see the copy it's created, the content it's created, you can kind of go through and be like, okay, well, that word is in there and maybe I changed that for something else. It is a tricky one because a lot of the stuff it's doing is what we taught it to do. And now that it's doing it, everyone's doing it. So ironically, and this kind of brings us right back around to the feelings, not features thing and the being authentic thing, what is actually standing out in the marketplace now is content that is so obviously human ChatGPT couldn't have touched it. So we're talking spelling mistakes. We're talking, poor grammar, colloquialisms, weird sentence structure that isn't that kind of formulaic copy. That is what is connecting. Really raw, authentic content, especially on social media, is winning versus correct copy because that is suddenly the format everyone has been given to use.
In terms of tools,
Mm.
do you have a preference of which AI platform do you use, or do you actually advise your clients to use in terms of writing and copywriting?
Oh, it's such a tough one because they're in such a close arms race all the time. So by the time this goes live, I'm certain my opinion will have changed
Right now, because
right
we are
now.
recording 22nd of July, so probably gonna air in the next couple of weeks, 2, 3 weeks, so closest to the 22nd of July, 2025.
Okay.
That's
Right now, for copywriting or for research, I prefer Claude because it doesn't try and write like a copywriter, because it hasn't got the same desire to add personality to everything it writes that ChatGPT tends to have. However, for more advanced AI work, for agentic AI, particularly given the updates that have come out this week, ChatGPT and Claude both are really pushing the boat in terms of moving us towards a more collaborative agentic use of AI. So copy-wise, Claude right now, and research, but it's everything's to play for. I think it's going to be a case of who gets to that GPT-5 level of actually thinking like a human first. It'll be really interesting.
I'm curious. I'm curious to see.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I will use ChatGPT to brainstorm,
Yes.
but to analyze data and for transcripts. Oh my God, ChatGPT is so bad with transcripts, in particular long
Yes.
ones. I'll Claude does an incredible job. Like if I'm thinking about turning my webinars into blog posts that sound like me, or there's
Yes.
very little editing to do after Claude is fed that part. While
Mhm.
ChatGPT, even if you give it a transcript, it'll take some creative liberties, let's put it this
That's
way.
exactly right. Yeah, 100%. I think you've got it spot on for me. Claude is much better at extracting and simulating brand voice. It's because it's trying less hard. It's just using your actual language rather than trying to come up with language it thinks you might use. It's a very
Mhm.
different but subtle nuance.
I want to go back to the principles now,
Yeah.
and the principle of emotional writing and emotional copywriting here. What are some of the principles that you think, if you can just give like two or three, that you say, okay, in every copy, this is a must, whether it's on the thinking point of view, so on the planning,
Mhm.
or the actual execution. You can decide. Just let's look at principles.
Sure. I mean, the first one I think that is most important is the hero story. We have to be heroing the ideal client, the person we're talking to, in everything we write. So whether you're researching, brainstorming, or writing, it's it's thinking, am I making myself the hero? Am I the one swooping in and saving the day when I'm writing about this? Or am I head centering the client, the person who's reading this in the experience? And there's a few different ways of doing that from an implementation point of view. It's using you language rather than they language. So we're talking directly to the person reading. But it's also giving the reader all the information they need to make a decision, but giving them the autonomy. So when we talk about the plan they're going to follow, it's you'll do this so you can get this result. You'll do this, you'll book this, you'll review this, because we all want to be autonomous beings. We want to feel like we're in control of our lives. And as soon as someone tells us what to do or acts like they're going to be our savior, our shackles get off. Exactly the face you just made. It's like, no, our inner toddler comes out and we stamp our feet and we're like, no, I'm not going to do that. I've got this. But if we can empower people, make people feel like they are the hero of the story, let's say the example we talked about earlier, you're not a bad parent. The fact that you're at your desk until 7 p.m. every night is not because you're a bad parent. It's actually because you're a great parent and you want to create an amazing life for your kids. But what's happening is you're allowing your schedule to control you. You need to take back control. If you do this, 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 and this, you're going to be able to get control of your schedule so that you can choose what to prioritize in your life. That makes someone feel like the hero of the story, like they are there, they are coming to save themselves with your help. So for me, that's the guiding principle of pretty much everything we do when we're writing copy is make that person reading it the hero.
I can see there is a sense of hope that is
Mm.
given in that sense.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I'm here, I'm done trying to do my best, but there is a better way. Like I'm hopeful now that I can do this. That's the
Yeah.
kind of feeling, talking about feeling that we want people to give. I think there is nothing more powerful for someone than a sense of hope. If I
Oh
think
God, yeah.
about even the any sales training that I've done or any, I mean, I love selling. I've done tons of sales calls. I'll still do them and I love doing them and
Mm.
selling from webinars. And when I have someone saying it's like, hey, you gave me hope. Doesn't matter if they're a multimillionaire or someone who is just starting out. But I think that that's the feeling that creates a lot of traction in terms on the positive side,
Yeah.
which is not like a fear of, oh my God, I really need to get out of this situation, because
Yes.
that's another great motivator. But on the positive side, I think like hope is gold.
I completely agree. And the other difference between that really negative and that really activating language is that when you make yourself as the service provider, the hero of the story, when you say, you're in this horrible situation, don't worry, I'm here to save you, that will make a sale, but it will also create an extremely unhealthy codependent relationship. Whereas when you are activating and empowering someone to buy, you are putting the power in their hands, which means that they are responsible for their success and they are responsible for their failure. And so people take that responsibility on board and they take action. They have skin in the game. They feel in control. And so yeah, you're right. It's an incredibly powerful feeling, hope. And it engenders trust because we like being around people who make us feel good about ourselves. So if you are talking to your audience and writing copy that makes people feel seen, makes them feel hopeful, makes them feel like things can be different and they have some say in the matter, they're going to want to hear more of what you have to say. You are someone who makes them feel like there's possibility. And so, yes, it's that activation. That's really the difference between pain point marketing and that kind of feelings led is activating someone. What can you say that's going to make someone realize that they're not as stuck as they think they are? And you talked about NLP earlier. My fiance is a hypnotherapist and a magician. So we talk about this stuff all the time. And the power of language to change people's worlds, to change people's minds is so impactful. It's kind of limitless, really. We create our realities all the time with the stories we tell ourselves. And so if you can be someone who, through the words you write on the page, through the words you present, through the words you say when you have conversations with people, make people feel like, there's a paradigm shift there. I can see that my life could be different. I could see that the world could be different. That is going to make you a shit ton of money because that is a hell of a skill. But it's also going to build trust because people will want to have a bit of whatever you're giving away.
I think if you are in business, you are in the business of influence.
Yeah.
That's ultimately what this is. And I think that's a different connotation of manipulation. I think then the intention is what makes the difference, right? You can have these
Mm.
tools and understand how psychology works, understand how human mind works, and then you can use them to push people down or to uplift them. And then ultimately, then the choice is yours, and it comes down to your heart and the kind of person you are, how you use those tools. I have another question for you. So, is there another principle that you can share? So, the one is to make the client the hero of the story. That's the one principle. Is there something else, another principle that you use, whether it is like before in the planning stage or during or after, that you think people need to understand and adopt?
Yeah, it's a really simple one, I think, but using more you language than I language um, is a really important principle. One of the others is again, using sensory language, we talked about that, but using that future-facing language to paint that picture of a brighter future. I think also when you're doing the planning, thinking really carefully about the specificity of your ideal client, like how granular can you get when you're thinking about that person's needs and wants? Because specificity is always where the gold is. A lot of people will have, oh, you're overwhelmed as the pain point on their sales page. It's like, yeah, everyone's overwhelmed. The world's busy. It's, life's hard. But if you can get super specific about what exactly is overwhelming that person, they're much more likely to be buying into that story to read the rest of the page. So what we want to do is think about exactly who we're talking to and try not to talk to everyone, but to that one specific ideal client. And I think people really balk against this. They don't like the idea because they think they're being too specific and they're going to miss out on a load of people. But I always like to think of it as kind of like the analogy of like you're playing darts. And so you've got to aim at something. You've got to have a bullseye that you're going for. And if you were aiming for that bullseye, chances are you're going to hit one of the concentric circles around it. But if you're not aiming for anything, if you're just like kind of dartboard direction, you might hit the wall. So the more specific and granular you can get, the better. The people who that is true for are going to feel so called in by your copy. And the people who it's sort of true for are still going to feel really, really called in by it.
Yeah,
So I think that work is really important. And that's more about prep work than writing work, but it's, really getting into the mind of the person you're trying to talk to. And again, AI can be super helpful for that research.
yeah, I loved using that to go into who they are and what kind of actions they've taken, what kind of what's their day like. I know, for example, there is a part in my webinars that I think in hindsight can be one of the simplest one, but it's the one that gives me the most sales.
Yeah.
And is when I talk about, you're delivering a webinar. The reason why it doesn't make sales is because you treat it like a training. You
Hmm.
decide that you want to deliver everything like your best material and you're putting it out there. And now you create this incredible training and you get compliments and not sales.
Mm.
That line, that line, when I
Compliments and
ask
not
people,
sales.
why did you buy? They were like, yes, because my webinars, I've realized that they are training, they're not sales webinars, and that's why I've not made any sales all this time.
Yeah.
That's the aha moment. And so I get it out there in the first part of the webinar because I know that I hit that first, boom, now they're in. And
Yeah.
there are these moments where you can only grab that attention because they've experienced it, they've done it, they spent a month working on a webinar for that not making any sale. And I know that about them, and I know that also because I've been there as well. So there is that
Yeah.
connection.
I love that. And there's a tool I use actually, which I stole from Chris Voss, who wrote a book. He's a negotiator, ex-FBI negotiator, wrote a really good book called Never Split the Difference. And there's a tool he uses for negotiation that I apply to ideal client work. And it relates to your story, but it's called an accusation audit. And basically, what it means is trying to put yourself in the frame of mind of your ideal client and coming up with all the worst things they could possibly think about what it is you do or offer. So all of the potential limiting beliefs they might have, all of the false beliefs, just straight up false beliefs they might have about what it is you do. Because then what you can be doing is, even if those are unconscious beliefs, you can be tackling those very quickly in your copy. So that, let's say one of them could be an email subject line. Trying to think about a good example, let's say for copywriting, since it's on the table, but people might think that copywriting is sleazy because that's what they've seen online. Like, oh, I'm not going to hire a copywriter. They'll make me sound not like myself. So I might take that and write an email or write a sales page headline that's like, focusing on that specific objection. So you can't possibly sound like me. You're a copywriter. And that's going to grab people's attention because they already think that thing. And he talks in the book about the psychology there of trying to get people to go, oh no, I don't really think that. Almost defend you. They kind
Yeah.
of jump to your defense. And I think what you've said there is a great example. Like my webinar's not getting sales, it's getting compliments. That's so specific to what your ideal client is thinking. And it would have been a potential objection that's lying under why they wouldn't buy from you had you not mentioned it.
Yeah. I've tried, but didn't work. That's enter the
Yeah.
objection. I've tried, it didn't work. I'm like, well,
Hmm.
you can get sales, but if you get compliments, it's like, well, it means you delivered a great training. Congratulations. But you
Yeah.
delivered a very bad sales webinar because
Right.
here's the difference. And then where education start. I can talk to you all day. Like really, Chantal, we can geek out on persuasion, influence. I think we are on the same wavelength here.
A hundred
I'm
percent.
sure that people want to know more about how they can get in touch with you, if you have any tools or resources that they can use. So, what's the best way to get in touch with you, and what kind of resources do you have for everyone watching or listening?
Yeah, of course. So you can find me on Instagram at Copywriting Business Coach or on Facebook, Chantelle Davison, it's just under my name. In terms of tools and resources, I've actually created something quite fun. It's launching this week, which I suppose it will be live by the time this goes. It's called Artificial Chantelligence. And it is I enjoyed the name too. It is basically, I've taken the process I walk people through when I work with them on one-to-one copy, and I've turned it into a GPT-powered process. So it's a series of custom GPTs that acts like a copywriting coach. So rather than just doing it for them, which, there's tons of sales page GPTs out there written by non-copywriters, which profess to create you a high converting sales page. No shade, some of them are probably great, but for me, you have to keep the person in it. So I've created a process that asks people the questions that I would ask them and then helps them put it in the right format, in the right structure, so they can create a sales page and sales emails for all the offers they want to, only having to pay once. So that is going to be live very soon. That'll be on my website and on my social medias. Other than that, for people interested in learning more about copy, I have a membership called Copy College, where they get monthly audits, where they can dive into trainings about all of these principles and more, and monthly live workshops on the feelings, not features methodology as well.
Yeah, all the links are going to be in the show notes or the description, so make sure you check them and you can click. Gotta say that investing in copywriting and learning that skills, in particular now that you have AI, is one of the
Mm,
best things that you can do. Because once you understand, that's why I wanted to have this conversation mainly around principles. Because once you understand the principles, you know whether ChatGPT or Claude or whatever tool you're using actually is giving you something good or
yeah.
something you need to change, and then you can add it in a much better way. So even if you're not is your goal is not to become a professional copywriter, if you're in business, you are in a business of influence, you're in a business of words. And the words, as Chantel mentioned, they change someone's word, they change their mind, they change their life. And in
Mm,
particular, if you have a product or service that can make someone's life better, then the better you can express it and the better you can connect, because this is what we're talked about today, connection, then the better your business is going to be and the more it's going to grow. So check it out and connect with Chantal. Chantal, thank you very much. It's been I love this. I really enjoyed this interview.
I have really enjoyed it too. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
All right, everyone. Thanks for watching or for listening. Two things. If you have not subscribed, make sure you subscribe right now. And two, make sure you give us a good 5-star review. These reviews are the lifeblood of every podcast and every show. They're good for the guests, they're good for the show, and they're good for my ego. So make sure that you get that 5-star review. And until next time, remember that together we grow exponentially. Ciao.